Before we begin, look at this woman. She's seconds away from a new life, clutching forged papers at a rainy border. She thinks she's finally outrun the devil. But what she doesn't know, and what you're about to find out, is that every step she took towards freedom was actually a path he paved for her. This isn't just a story about a Korean mafia boss and his property. It's a chilling look at what happens when a man doesn't just want to own your body, but wants to own your very reality. It's a game of psychological chess where the board is rigged and the pieces are human lives. If you think you know how this ends, you're wrong. Now, if you're ready to see how the gold circle truly operates, stay with me. But I have to warn you, by the time we reach the end, you'll be checking your own locks. If this story stays under your skin, tap that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, is a gilded cage still a prison if you have everything you ever wanted? Let's step into the shadows. Maya's beat-up Honda coughed to a stop outside the Kang estate at 11:47 p.m. 3 jobs weren't enough anymore, not with the foreclosure notice burning a hole in her glove compartment, so she'd started taking the late-night deliveries nobody else wanted, the ones that paid double, the ones in neighborhoods where delivery drivers disappeared. She grabbed the unmarked package from the passenger seat, her sneakers crunching on gravel that probably cost more than her car. The estate loomed ahead, all cold marble and windows that reflected nothing back. Protocol said leave it at the gate. The extra $200 said bring it to the side entrance. Maya's phone buzzed. Mortgage payment overdue. Final notice. She walked faster. The side door stood open, warm light spilling onto manicured hedges. She raised her hand to knock when voices froze her mid-motion. The shipment from Busan? A young voice, American educated but edged with something Arctic. You're 3 girls short. Mr. Kang, please. I don't accept incomplete orders, Mr. Chen. Would you accept incomplete payment? Through the gap in the door, Maya saw him, tall, probably late 20s, wearing a suit that cost more than her yearly income. Kang Jin-hyuk. She delivered here twice before, never saw more than his security team. He was holding a tablet, swiping through photographs of young women like he was browsing a restaurant menu. Dispose of the damaged ones, source the replacements by Thursday. Maya's breath caught. Her phone slipped from her pocket, hitting the stone with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. Every head in the room turned toward the door. Kang's eyes met hers through the gap, dark, calculating, and suddenly very focused. Well, he said softly, we have a witness. Maya ran. Her Honda's engine screamed as she floored it down the winding driveway, but the headlights appeared in her rearview mirror before she reached the main road. 3 black SUVs, moving with the precision of wolves closing on prey. They didn't run her off the road. They didn't need to. By the time she reached her apartment in Brooklyn, they were already inside. 2 men in expensive suits sat on her thrift store couch like they owned it. Behind them, Kang stood examining the stack of overdue bills on her kitchen counter with the detached curiosity of a scientist studying bacteria. Maya Matthews, he read from her electric bill. 3 jobs, $60,000 in debt, a mother in a nursing home you can't afford. He looked up. You work very hard to stay invisible. I respect that. Get out. Her voice shook. I'm calling the police. With what evidence? That you witnessed a private business transaction while trespassing? He stepped closer. Or perhaps you'd like to explain why you're working under 2 different tax IDs. The room tilted. He'd already mapped her entire life. I have a better solution. Kang produced a black folder, setting it on her second-hand table. Your mother's medical bills, paid. Your mortgage, cleared. A position in my organization that pays 6 figures. I'm not interested in... You don't understand. He smiled. Her eyes didn't reach his. I'm not offering you a choice. I'm explaining your new reality. You already know too much, so you either become mine willingly or you become mine anyway. At least this path keeps your family comfortable." The foreclosure notice felt heavier in her pocket. "How long?" she whispered. "Until I decide you've earned your freedom." He straightened his cuffs. "Welcome to the Gold Circle, Miss Matthews. You start tomorrow." 6 months of gilded captivity taught Maya that Kang Jin-hyuk's world operated on brutal mathematics. She managed his legitimate businesses, the hotels, the import companies, the charity galas where senators shook his hand. She wore designer clothes that felt like uniforms. She lived in a penthouse that locked from the outside. She never saw the dark transactions again. She didn't need to. She knew what funded the marble and champagne. Kang Jin-hyuk appeared in her office doorway without knocking. He never knocked. "You've been useful," he said, setting a leather portfolio on her desk. "Considerate and efficient. No escape attempts, no desperate calls for help. I appreciate pragmatism." Maya's fingers tightened on her pen. She'd learned not to react. "So I'm offering you an opportunity." He opened the portfolio, revealing a contract dense with legal language. 3 years of flawless service, no breaches of confidentiality, no attempts to leave, complete loyalty. After that, I'll release you. Clean record, substantial severance, your family's debts permanently erased. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Why?" "Because I don't keep unwilling assets forever. They become liabilities." He slid a pen across the desk. "But if you run, if you betray me, if you break this agreement, your mother loses her care facility, your brother loses his scholarship, and you lose significantly more." Maya read the contract 3 times, searching for the trap. The terms seemed straightforward, cruel but clear. 3 years, she repeated. 3 years of perfect obedience. His smile was knife-thin. "Then you're free." She signed. The ink felt permanent. What Maya didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Jin-hyuk had already decided she would never leave. The contract was just another cage, wrapped in the illusion of hope. And hope, he'd learned, was the most effective prison of all. 2.5 years of perfect obedience bought Maya something Jin-hyuk never anticipated: his complacency. She played the model asset. She ran his logistics with ruthless efficiency. She smiled at his business dinners and never flinched when his hand rested possessively on her lower back. She became furniture in his world, expensive, useful, and utterly predictable. But Maya Matthews hadn't survived Brooklyn by being predictable. She started small, a security guard who gambled too much, slipped $200 and a sympathetic ear, an IT contractor nursing a grudge over unpaid overtime, paid in cash to accidentally leave system passwords visible, the accountant's assistant who thought Maya's smile meant something more than strategy. 6 months before her contract expired, Maya had everything she needed. Forged documents commissioned through a contact who owed her brother a favor, a smuggler route mapped through 3 states, each handoff paid with money skimmed from Jin-hyuk's petty cash, amounts too small to trigger audits. A new identity waiting in Vancouver, complete with work history and references. She memorized the plan until it ran like code in her sleep. Leave during the annual Seoul business trip when half of his security detail traveled with him. Destroy her phone, burn every bridge, disappear into the kind of anonymous poverty Jin-hyuk's people would never think to search. The night before the Seoul trip, Maya stood in her penthouse prison and allowed herself one moment of triumph. She'd beaten him with the same weapons she'd used to survive before he found her: patience, observation, and the ability to become whatever people needed to see. In 72 hours, she'd be gone.
Jin-hyuk was 10 steps ahead. He'd been watching her build her escape for 6 months, cataloging every contact, funding every forged document through shell companies, waiting. The checkpoint appeared through the rain like salvation materializing from darkness. Maya's pulse hammered as the van slowed, windshield wipers beating a rhythm that matched her racing heart. 48 hours since she'd walked out of the penthouse. 2 state lines crossed, 3 different vehicles, every counter-surveillance technique she'd learned from true crime podcasts and her brother's paranoid friends. The Canadian border was 300 yards ahead. Papers? Driver grunted. Marcus, the smuggler her contact promised was reliable, expensive, and crucially unconnected to Jin-hyuk's network. She'd paid him $8,000, half her escape fund. Maya handed over the passport. Sarah Chen, graphic designer, Toronto resident returning from a conference. The photo matched perfectly. The backstory would hold under basic questioning. Through the rain-streaked window, she could see the border station's lights. Normal traffic for 2 a.m., a few trucks, a couple of cars, no black SUVs. She'd done it. "You good?" Marcus asked, sensing her tension. "Yeah." Maya pressed her palm against the window, feeling the cold glass. On the other side of that checkpoint was a life Jin-hyuk couldn't touch. A studio apartment under a different name, a job that didn't require her to smile when evil happened in expensive rooms. Freedom.
The van rolled forward. A guard emerged from the station, flashlight cutting through the rain. Standard procedure. Maya had rehearsed this moment 100 times. She never noticed her phone's screen illuminate in her bag, never saw the pulsing surveillance marker activate, never realized Marcus's secondary phone had been receiving updates every 30 miles. The guard waved them toward the inspection lane. Maya took a breath. Almost there. The border guard's face was weathered, professional. He examined Maya's passport under the harsh overhead light, comparing the photo to her face with methodical precision. Purpose of visit to the States? Design conference in Manhattan. Her voice stayed steady. She'd practiced this. Duration of stay? 5 days. He flipped through the passport pages, each stamp perfect, each visa authentic-looking. The forger had charged $3,000 and promised government-grade quality. The guard handed it back. "Welcome home, Miss Chen." Relief flooded through her like morphine. Maya exhaled, reaching for the door handle. Then she saw it. Marcus wasn't watching the road ahead. He was watching his side mirror with an expression that didn't match the moment. Not relief, not boredom, anticipation. Maya's eyes dropped to the phone mounted on his dashboard. The screen showed a messaging app, the last text still visible. Package delivered, awaiting confirmation. Her blood turned to ice. "Marcus." "Sorry, sweetheart." He didn't sound sorry. Bills don't pay themselves. The border guard who'd checked her passport stepped back from the window, not away from the van, away from the line of fire. 2 more guards emerged from the station, but their uniforms were wrong, too well tailored, moving with military precision that Border Patrol didn't have. Behind them, the station's lights illuminated a black Rolls-Royce that definitely hadn't been there 2 minutes ago. Maya's forged passport felt like tissue paper in her shaking hands. The rear door of the Rolls-Royce opened. Jin-hyuk stepped out in the rain, immaculate in a charcoal suit, holding an umbrella like he was attending the opera instead of her execution. He smiled. "Hello, Maya." The border guards moved in perfect synchronization, stepping away from the van like choreographed dancers, not retreating, repositioning, creating a clear path between Maya and the man she'd spent 6 months trying to escape. The rain fell harder, turning the checkpoint into a stage lit by halogen lights and the Rolls-Royce's headlamps.
Maya's hand froze on the door handle as Jin-hyuk's security detail materialized from positions she hadn't noticed. 4 men, maybe 5, emerging from shadows that shouldn't have been able to hide them. They'd been waiting. The station door opened again. A man in a supervisor's uniform emerged, but he wasn't looking at Maya with concern or confusion. He was looking at Jin-hyuk with the deference of an employee reporting to management. "Mr. Kong, everything secure." Her stomach dropped through the floor of the van. Jin-hyuk owned the checkpoint. He owned the guards. He probably owned the section of road leading here and the forest on either side. Marcus killed the engine. "She's all yours, boss. Pleasure doing business." "You performed adequately." Jin-hyuk's voice carried through the rain, calm as a professor delivering a lecture. He gestured, and one of his men handed Marcus an envelope thick with cash, more than 8,000, much, much more. Maya watched the transaction through the window, her brilliant escape collapsing into a humiliating performance she'd staged for an audience of 1. The passenger door opened, not Marcus, one of Jin-hyuk's men, holding an umbrella. "Miss Matthews?" His tone was courteous, implacable. "Mr. Kong is waiting." Every exit was blocked. Every face belonged to Jin-hyuk's network. Maya stepped out into the rain, her legs barely supporting her weight. Jin-hyuk watched her approach, still smiling that knife-thin smile. "We need to talk." Jin-hyuk didn't speak as his man guided Maya toward the Rolls-Royce. He simply stood there, umbrella angled perfectly to keep the rain off his shoulders, watching her the way a jeweler might examine a diamond under magnification, assessing quality, noting flaws, calculating value. The silence was worse than screaming. Maya's mind raced through scenarios: beg for mercy, claim coercion, play the victim she'd pretended to be at the checkpoint. But every strategy shattered against the reality of his expression: patient, clinical, utterly surprised. He'd known she would run. He'd been waiting for it. "Get in," he said finally, gesturing to the Rolls-Royce's open door. "I can explain." "I know." 2 words, spoken with the certainty of someone who'd already read the ending. "Get in, Maya. This conversation doesn't happen in the rain with an audience." She looked back at the van. Marcus was counting his blood money, not even pretending to care about her fate. The border guards had returned to their posts, acting like they hadn't just sold out their jurisdiction to a crime syndicate. No witnesses. No one who would remember a woman named Sarah Chen. Maya climbed into the Rolls-Royce because there was no alternate universe where she didn't.
Jin-hyuk slid beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and cold, like winter in a bottle. The door closed with a sound like a bank vault ceiling. The interior was silent, soundproofed, isolated. He still hadn't raised his voice, hadn't touched her. The control in his absolute stillness was more terrifying than any threat. "You must have questions," he said, adjusting his cufflinks with practiced precision. Maya's voice came out raw. "How long have you known?" "Since the beginning," he smiled. "I funded your entire escape." Maya's brain refused to process the words. "That's impossible. I used contacts you don't know, money you couldn't trace." "The security guard with gambling debts?" Jin-hyuk's voice remained conversational, like they were discussing stock portfolios. "I paid off his markers 6 months ago. He reports directly to me now." "The IT contractor?" "I had him fired from his previous job specifically so he'd accept work at my company." "The accountant's assistant who thought you were flirting?" He paused. "She's been on my payroll for 3 years." Each revelation hit like a physical blow. "Your forger, excellent work by the way, purchases his materials from one of my suppliers." Marcus has driven for the gold circle since 2019. Even the contact who connected you to him, your brother's friend? Jin-hyuk pulled out his phone, scrolling with detached interest. I've been funding your brother's scholarship. He has no idea, of course. Neither did you. Maya's hands were shaking. The money I skimmed? From petty cash accounts I don't monitor because they're too insignificant to matter. But I started monitoring them the moment you began. He showed her his phone screen, a spreadsheet tracking every dollar she'd stolen, every transaction, every plan, dated back 6 months. You let me think I was winning. I let you confirm exactly what I suspected. Jin-hyuk pocketed his phone. That given the opportunity, you would run. That your word means nothing. That the contract you signed, he produced the document from his jacket, was signed under false pretenses. You never intended to honor it. You never intended to let me go. No, he agreed simply, but now I have proof you can't be trusted with freedom. The contract felt like a confession. This was a test. One you failed spectacularly. You could have just killed me. Maya's voice was hollow. The night I saw the transaction, 1 bullet, problem solved. Death is permanent but unremarkable. Jin-hyuk turned to face her fully, his eyes reflecting the dashboard's glow. You don't understand what you are to me, Maya. You're not a problem to eliminate. You're the most fascinating acquisition I've ever made. I'm not a goddamn acquisition. You are exactly that. Do you know how rare you are? Most people I own break immediately. They see the resources, the reach, and they surrender. But you? Something almost like admiration flickered across his face. You spent 6 months building an escape with nothing but street smarts and determination. You nearly convinced yourself you'd win. I'm not a trophy for your collection. No, trophies sit on shelves. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something intimate and terrible. You're a masterpiece that keeps trying to escape the museum, and that defiance, that refusal to accept reality, is precisely why I can never let you go. Maya pressed herself against the car door. So what? You keep me locked up forever until I become some broken thing that doesn't fight back? Breaking you would be wasteful. Jin-hyuk's smile returned, colder than before. I don't want obedience born from fear, Maya. I want you to understand on a molecular level that escape is mathematically impossible, that every door you find I built, that freedom is an illusion I allow you to chase. That's insane. That's possession. He straightened his tie, and tonight's lesson was just the beginning of your education. Jin-hyuk reached across Maya and opened the glove compartment. Inside sat a silver lighter, expensive, engraved, the kind of object that cost more than her first car. Your passport, he said, extending his hand. Maya clutched her bag tighter. No, it's not a request. His tone didn't change, but the air in the car became suffocating. Give it to me or I'll have my men retrieve it. Your choice how much dignity you keep. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out the forged passport. Sarah Chen's face stared back at her. The identity she'd paid for, planned around, believed would save her. Jin-hyuk took it with clinical precision, holding it up to examine in the dashboard light. Exceptional craftsmanship. The watermarks are nearly perfect. In another life, your forger could have worked for a government. He flicked open the lighter. Don't! Maya lunged forward, but his other hand caught her wrist with effortless strength. Watch, he commanded. The flame touched the passport's corner. It caught immediately, curling and blackening.
Sarah Chen's photograph bubbled and melted, features distorting into something unrecognizable. The pages curled like dying flowers, edges glowing orange before crumbling to ash. He held it until the fire reached his fingers, then dropped the burning remains into the car's ashtray. The smell of burning paper and chemicals filled the confined space. "Sarah Chen no longer exists," he said, closing the lighter with a definitive click. "Maya Matthews, the woman who thought she could outwit me, also no longer exists." He released her wrist, brushing invisible ash from his sleeve. "What remains is my property. The sooner you accept that, the easier this becomes." Maya stared at the ashes, watching the last ember die. Her identity, her escape, her hope, all reduced to smoke. Jin-hyuk's phone chimed. He glanced at the screen, then back at Maya with that same clinical interest. "Before we return home, I should show you something. Professional courtesy." He pulled up an application, a map interface dotted with pulsing markers. Maya's stomach sank as she recognized the route. Every stop she'd made over the past 48 hours mapped with GPS precision. "Your jacket," Jin-hyuk said, "the one you're wearing. I had it made for you 8 months ago. Beautiful cashmere blend, Italian tailoring. There's a tracker woven into the lining, undetectable by standard scanning equipment." Maya's hands flew to her jacket, fingers searching for something, anything. "You won't find it. The technology costs more than most people earn in a year." He scrolled through the map. "Your boots, Korean manufacturers, tracker embedded in the left heel. Your bag, your watch, even your bra." He met her eyes. "I know every breath you've taken since you left." She thought of the 3 outfit changes, the dumped phone, the careful counter-surveillance. All useless. "You can't," her voice cracked. "I changed clothes." "Into the emergency supplies I had planted in the second vehicle. The backpack at the rest stop? Mine. The coat from the thrift store Marcus recommended?" He smiled. "I own that thrift store." Maya felt reality fracturing. Every decision she'd made, every clever move, he'd authored them all. "There is nowhere on this continent you can go that I won't know about in real time," Jin-hyuk continued. "Switching clothes won't help, destroying your phone won't help, running won't help." He leaned back, utterly relaxed. "Mathematics, Maya. You can't outrun an equation that's already solved for your position." She was still wearing his surveillance. She'd never stopped. Jin-hyuk tapped the privacy screen. The driver pulled away from the checkpoint without a word, leaving the border station and Maya's destroyed future behind in the rain. The Rolls-Royce glided onto the highway, silent as a hearse. Maya stared out the window, watching the Canadian border recede in the side mirror. 300 yards. That's how close she'd come to a fantasy Jin-hyuk had constructed specifically for her to chase. He didn't speak, didn't gloat. He simply worked on his tablet, reading emails and approving contracts like this was a normal Tuesday commute. The casual indifference was worse than anger. She wasn't even worth his sustained attention. The miles accumulated. New York welcomed us back with towering lights and midnight traffic. Maya City, the place she'd fought to save, to survive in, to escape from. Now it felt like a prison built specifically to her dimensions. She touched her jacket's collar, imagining the tracker woven invisibly into the fabric. How many other items in her closet were surveillance equipment disguised as gifts? How many meals she'd eaten off plates that monitored her location? How many showers she'd taken while he knew exactly where she stood? "You're wondering what's left," Jin-hyuk said, not looking up from his tablet. Maya didn't answer. Everything you wear, everywhere you go, everyone you speak to, I'll know. He finally met her eyes. But I'm not unreasonable. You'll still have your penthouse, your job, the illusion of autonomy. You'll just never forget who permits it. The city lights blurred through her unshed tears. Why not just lock me in a cell? Because, Jin-hyuk said softly, gilded cages are so much more effective. You'll cage yourself. The penthouse looked exactly as Maya had left it 48 hours ago. Same designer furniture, same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, same suffocating luxury. Except for the man installing biometric scanners on her front door. Fingerprint, retinal, and facial recognition, Jin-hyuk explained, watching the technician work. The system logs every entry and exit. You'll need my authorization to leave the building. Maya stood in the center of her living room, no, his living room that he let her occupy, and watched her world shrink further. Another technician emerged from her bedroom. Cameras are live, Mr. Kang. All feeds routing to your security hub. Cameras? The word came out strangled. Bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, office. Jin-hyuk scrolled through his tablet, showing her multiple video angles of her own space. Don't worry, I won't watch constantly, just randomly. You'll never know when I'm observing. The invasion crystallized into something physical. He'd taken her attempted escape and transformed it into total surveillance. The windows are now reinforced, bulletproof, shatterproof, and they'll trigger silent alarms if opened more than 3 inches. Your internet access routes through my servers. Every search, every email, every website monitored. Your phone, he produced a new device, works only with approved contacts, all calls recorded.
Maya took the phone with numb fingers. Her contact list had been reduced to 5 names: Jin-hyuk, his assistant, her mother's care facility, her brother, and emergency services that would route through his people. This is insane. This is consequence. Jin-hyuk adjusted his cufflinks. I'm ensuring you can't make that mistake again. It's not a home, it's a maximum security prison. Yes, he agreed, but the sheets are Egyptian cotton. The technicians finished their work and left like ghosts, disappearing into the elevator that now required Jin-hyuk's authorization to call. Maya stood at the window, staring at the city that had become unreachable. Your contract has been amended. Jin-hyuk placed a new document on her desk. The 3-year term is void. Your employment with the Gold Circle is now indefinite. She didn't turn around. You mean my imprisonment? You mean your position. He moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could see their reflections in the glass, her exhausted and defeated, him composed and victorious. You'll continue managing my legitimate operations. You'll attend events on my arm when required. You'll live comfortably, wanting nothing material. Except freedom? Freedom is overrated. You spent 6 months planning an escape that brought you exactly nowhere. His reflection smiled. Imagine what you could accomplish if you redirected that energy towards acceptance. Maya's laugh was bitter. You want me to thank you for this? I want you to understand this. He turned her to face him, his grip firm but not painful. Every door you see is one I control. Every opportunity to run is one I've designed. You are not a prisoner, Maya. You're my most valuable asset, and assets this rare are never liquidated. She met his eyes, searching for something human beneath the calculation. Found nothing. One day, she whispered, you'll make a mistake. Perhaps. Jin-hyuk released her, heading for the door. But you won't live long enough to exploit it. The biometric lock engaged behind him with a sound like a vault ceiling.
Maya was alone in her golden cage, 20 stories above a city full of people who were free. The window reflected only her face now, a prisoner staring at her cell. 3 days after the border, Maya stood at her window watching dawn break over Manhattan. She hadn't slept, couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jin-hyuk smile as he burned her passport, heard his voice explaining how thoroughly he'd choreographed her failure. Her phone, his phone, sat on the marble counter, a monument to his control. The cameras blinked red in her peripheral vision, watching, always watching. She should feel broken. That's what he wanted, a masterpiece that understood its frame. But somewhere between the third sleepless night and the fourth cup of coffee, something shifted. Jin-hyuk had spent 6 months teaching her a lesson. Running was impossible. Every exit was his. Every ally was his plant. Every clever scheme was one he'd already anticipated and monetized. Fine. Maya pressed her palm against the bulletproof glass, feeling the city pulse beyond her cage. She'd been thinking like a street hustler trying to outrun a syndicate. Wrong strategy, wrong battlefield. He'd said it himself. She was his most valuable asset. Assets had leverage, assets were necessary, and men who built their empires on absolute control had a fatal flaw. They couldn't imagine the thing they owned might learn to think like them. She couldn't run, but she could study, learn his network, understand his business, become so essential that the cage became mutual, where he needed her as much as she needed freedom. Jin-hyuk won the escape, but the war was longer than one night at the border. Maya turned from the window, her reflection sharp in the glass. Not a prisoner anymore, a queen learning the chessboard. And queens didn't run, they conquered. Maya is still in that penthouse. She still wears his cashmere, eats off his plates, and sleeps in his Egyptian cotton. To the world, she has everything. To Jin-hyuk, she is a masterpiece. But beneath the designer clothes, a new Maya is awakening, one who realized that if you can't escape the game, you have to become the one who writes the rules. The moral of the story? The most dangerous prison isn't built with bars and locks, but with the illusion of choice. When someone offers to solve all your problems, always look for the price tag, because true freedom is never something that can be granted by another. It is something that must be protected at all costs. Sometimes, the smallest hands carry the greatest power to change everything. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for more incredible stories that prove even in the darkest places, the human spirit is the one thing no one can truly own.